to lead under stress. I studied in order to learn from the masters. The other reason was intellectual inquiry, to learn how the great naval leaders developed their talents, how they thought and reasoned, and what compelled their actions. How did they manage the responsibilities and tension of high command? How did they prepare themselves for war, reflect about war, and behave when they made war? To discover the answers, I read, and eventually I wrote, naval history, for although history is a constantly changing tableau, it is also a seamless cloth, and by understanding how sea warriors in the past attempted to answer these questions, I could discern the essential nature of war at sea. The antagonists in the battles described in this book first had to contend with the sea. The sea's most fundamental characteristic is its vastness, for the oceans cover 75% of the Earth's surface. While Army officers think in terms of kilometers over terrain ranging from deserts to mountains, naval officers think in terms of transit time over great distances, hundreds and even thousands of nautical miles over a uniform water surface disturbed only by the wind. Naval officers prefer the freedom of the open seas, though they must nonetheless sometimes fight at close quarters in restricted waters, forcing them to think three-dimensionally by considering the depth of the water under the keel, as well as the precise distances between ship and shoals. In the middle of the 20th century, their warfare environment included carrier-launched airplanes, and by the end of that century, it embraced orbiting satellites as naval warfare became genuinely global. Alfred Thayer Mahan notwithstanding, no one navy can truly control the sea, for a fleet is but a pinprick upon 135 million square miles of water. It may be a fleet of great power, able to defeat any enemy within range of its weapons, and thus temporarily control an area within its combat radius. But when the fleet moves on, the sea in its wake is again open to other ships to pass undisturbed. Hence, there is no equivalent to the trenches, fortifications, and front lines of land warfare, which allow armies to remain in place and in control indefinitely. Barclay controlled Lake Erie until defeated by Perry. The Virginia seized control of Hampton Roads for a day, only to lose it the next. In the Western Pacific, Japanese control of the waters around the Philippines proved almost equally fleeting. In the Persian Gulf, and in the modern world generally, the control of any sea is an elusive and ephemeral quality. The accountability of command, however, is absolute. This sometimes leads naval officers to be careful, even meticulous, their degree of caution or boldness contingent upon their willingness to take calculated risks. But sea duty also instills a sense of enormous confidence and independence, first experienced when a junior qualifies as an officer of the deck underway and assumes the burden of responsibility for the ship while the captain is below. Decisions must often be made instantaneously, and as a junior officer makes those decisions and exercises his authority, he may over time come to feel more liberated than inhibited by the mantle of authority. Once in command, a captain's authority becomes nearly as absolute as his accountability. In the midst of battle, that authority must be exercised in an environment that is both chaotic and constantly changing. War is messy. The orderly battle line disintegrates into a melee. The eternal question for captains engaged in combat is one of assigning priorities. Which of the many crises a captain confronts must be dealt with first? Does he maneuver to conform to instructions that seem to have been overtaken by events, or does he exercise his authority and independently close with the enemy? At the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, the great British hero of the Age of Sail, Horatio Lord Nelson, informed his commanders that no captain can do very wrong if he places his ship alongside that of an enemy. Nelson encouraged independent thought among his subordinates, and that day, at least, it paid off for him and for England. Despite dramatic improvements in communication since Nelson's day, the central dilemma remains, and both responsibility and accountability